A beautiful sight, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway bathed in sunlight, a warm day, and cars headed on to the racetrack. It's day 2 of the Indianapolis 500 Open Test, getting ready for the 109th running of the 500-mile race coming up on May 25th. The boost has been turned up for a high boost sim. So this is basically Fast Friday rehearsal today, and there's a good reason why the manufacturers and teams wanted this to be done.
There certainly is. I mean, you have this new hybrid system like we've talked about, which has a few different implications. First of all is the weight. It's added about 100 pounds, give or take, to the weight of this race car, and that's a significant percentage increase when you're talking about a race car that only weighs about 1,700 pounds. So understanding what that does to the balance, understanding what that does to the tire, that's going to be something very important once you add that boost and you're running 4, 5, 6, 7 miles an hour average faster. The other thing is just that. How does this hybrid system work when you're doing qualifying runs? How can the teams utilize it? How can they maximize it to find the absolute peak performance in these IndyCar engines? So you see right now Alex Rossi, one of the first cars out on track, and the speeds are significantly higher already than what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, Rossi turning laps of 227 and 228 in his first couple of trips around here. Yesterday's best laps were 225 in the draft with Scott Dixon, and the best of the no-toe speeds with nobody anywhere within 10 seconds in front of you giving some aerodynamic help was a 220 flat, 220.8. So already seeing about 8 miles an hour pickup just by turning up the boost.
We see a replay here.
This is Marco Andretti a second ago. Watch the hands on the wheel.
That is a very loose race car coming off of turn 1. Wow. It looks so subtle and so small from out here, but I can promise you from inside the seat, 3 or 4 corrections at that level, that's a whoa, 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 whoa. That is not a fun moment.
Here's Pato O'Ward, who is always in the mix for the win in the Indy 500 since he's teamed up with this group.
Yeah, I mean, the last 3 years, you know, he's had 2 second-place finishes and a late crash passing for second. So he's nearly done the 3 in a row of runner-ups, which is not what you want. But at the same time, it's so hard to be running in contention for a win multiple years, period, never mind in a row. And the last 3, he has been absolutely on it. Last year, I think, the 500 here, as we see him get nice and close to the exit of 2, but appropriate amount for a qualifying sim. But I look back at that race and some of the onboards from O'Ward the last stint last year, and that car was on the absolute ragged edge. He was doing everything that he could to try to catch Josef, and it was probably the best race that he's run in his IndyCar career.
You see the last lap speed for Pato. That is 6th overall where single laps are concerned, and remember, a few of those up the top of the board had some help in the toe. The single lap no toe, that's the 3rd best lap for O'Ward.
His trap speed into turn 3 on the last lap, a little bit lower than what we saw out of the 2 of Newgarden, about a 235 as he turned into turn 3.
Here's a driver who was fast on both the no-toe speeds and in the race running in day 1 of our open test, and that's Takuma Sato, the 2-time Indianapolis 500 winner, back with Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing again this year at Indianapolis, one of the 2 teams with which he's won the 500 in the past. And he had to go out and do that the refresher program because he hasn't driven an Indy car since the 500 here a year ago yesterday, and talked about how fascinating it was to get used to the hybrid and just to have that time on the speedway to reacquaint himself with racing in Indianapolis.
Yeah, it was fascinating to get Taku's, perspective on the hybrid. All the full season drivers obviously having spent half of last year and the first few races of this year with it, as well as anyone that attended the October test, which he did not. So for him, it's not just getting back up to speed on the speedway, it's learning this brand new system, how it works, how to get the most out of it. So, it's cool to see a driver, 48 years old, I think you said yesterday?
Yep.
Still learning something new when he comes to the speedway.
Well, he hasn't forgotten how to go fast because he has just put up the fastest lap of the day, no-toe speeds, or both. 232.565 for Takuma Sato, and he followed it up with a 232.33. He's going to have to bail out of it there for traffic, but
I think he maybe had a little wiggle as well, but my goodness, a 2:32.5, faster than what we've seen from Power, Palou, and Dixon with a toe. Second fastest no-toe time right now is a 2:30.1, but looks, this is what we just saw. A little bit high coming off a 1, and yeah, a little correction. That's a wiggle. That's more than you want to feel in a race car, but at those speeds, even the difference between a 2:30 flat and a 2:32.5, sorry, I mean, you can feel that, and that can be the difference between that right rear tire hanging on or it just giving up like we saw there from Takuma. So great to see the speed, but at the same time, you got to be able to do it 4 times or else it doesn't really matter.
just looking back on this from Will Power.
Oh yeah, you can see the back of the car slides a little bit on the exit. Not too dissimilar from what we saw out of Takuma Sato. And that's the thing in these qualifying runs, the way the setup is, you know, the speed you're going, you're just absolutely punishing these Firestone tires. And depending on what the balance is, you're either really just putting a ton of stress onto that right front, or if you've got it a little on the free side, that right rear sometimes just doesn't want to hang on. But luckily, it gives you a little bit of warning there, and we've seen a couple good saves there. We saw that first one from Marco right at the top of the session. We've now seen it from Takuma and from Will Power as well. It's just another one. You see he's adding understeer. He's got the understeer is building there, and you could see his right hand moving up, just adding lock into the car. And then as he comes out to the wall, the front sort of grips, and he's got to very quickly straighten that back out. That was off of turn 1.
Hendrick Motorsports Blue.
Oh, speaking of Larson,
wow.
We have a crash. Kyle Larson into the wall.
And first incident of this second day of testing involves that driver.
It looks like maybe he got wide and 1 on the exit, clipped the wall, and then was sort of trying to hang on to it through 2, but the suspension too damaged and ended up finding the wall again. Damage to the car certainly, but I mean, as far as incidents at the speedway go, especially in qualifying trim,
yeah,
it could have been a lot worse from a damage standpoint. Hopefully the driver's okay. We see him getting out of the car now. AMR safety team, as always, immediately on the scene.
Well, good to see Kyle out of the car. Obviously, the red flag is out. Let's go back and take a look at what happened there.
So yeah, a little high there in 1. Just pancaked the outside wall, and that right front is gone. No steering. And found the wall on the outside of 2. Immediately on the brakes, he got it slowed down fairly well and hit at an angle that wasn't too destructive, but it was really just keeping his foot in it. You see how high he is. He's on that sort of dirty part of the racetrack.
Man, that just took off on him, huh?
Yeah. You see the front wheels pointing different directions for a period there. Steering arm's broken.
So Kyle Larson's car sitting up against the safer barrier over in Speedway turn number 2, and we go under the red flag with about an hour and 20 minutes left in our morning session today.
As there's a yellow on the racetrack.
Trouble. Another crash. Takuma Sato.
A much bigger hit.
Wow, look at the damage to that car.
And that was a fast race car as well. That's a tough break. It's tough to have a race car crash at the speedway at any time, but when you've been running as well as Takuma has, you see him moving in the cockpit.
AMR safety team already there talking to Takuma. But wow, that is a torn up race car. What a hit.
So it looks like he lost it there in turn 1, just based on where the damage is. Be a bit of a lengthier cleanup as you see the safety team having to apply the kitty litter to absorb fluids coming out of the number 75 machine.
Remember, I talked yesterday about how the south end, turns 1 and 2, were the tricky spots in last year's 500-mile race. That almost every incident in the race, in a race that had a lot of incidents, happened in turns 1 or 2 at that end of the speedway. And so far today, it has been the tricky spot in this last 30 minutes, with both Kyle Larson and Takuma Sato having incidents at that end of the racetrack.
And it's interesting, too, because that often when you see a trend of one end of the track being a little more treacherous than the other, it's often condition-based, and that really can revolve around the wind direction and the wind speed. Right now, you know, you look on top of the pylon, that windsock is dead flat. We have, again, you kind of mentioned it off the top of the practice. It's about as perfect conditions as you can get here at the Speedway. It's a beautiful day to go running, and drivers not being challenged with that sort of thing to manage. Is Takuma taking a second here to get out of the race car.
Well, good to see. Now let's go back and see if we can see what happened to Takuma.
So he's already lost it at this point. So this is the only one we have. You can see the debris further up. So yeah, it looks like he just lost the back of the car in turn 1, made it all the way around. Pretty flat hit on the left side of the race car in the short chute there, and then obviously coming to a rest there in 2. And that's a big hit. Sideways is never a fun way to go into the wall. These cars are really designed more for rear impacts on ovals, but that car looks like it spun around fast enough that he just kind of went in sideways. There's just not as much car to absorb the impact when you go in sideways, not as much crash structure.
And that's the best look we have of it at the moment. But that just had the look that car swapped ends in a hurry on him. It just came around in a snap.
Yeah, it really does look like that. And you know, if you go in kind of square in the back, you don't get that kind of damage. So he went in sort of past a 45-degree angle to the left rear.
Checkered flag waving from top the Yard of Bricks, and so our morning session is over on this day 2 of Indy 500 open testing. And as we look at some of the single best lap results, your takeaway from this morning is what?
That there's still a lot of unknowns,
yeah,
to be honest. I mean, look, it's no surprise to see your defending pole winner, Scott McLaughlin, up there at the top. Takuma Sato's performance incredible, but now the question mark is, can they get that thing back to where it was? But I've still got eyes on Alex Palou. Every time he's been on the racetrack so far over these 2 days, it's been quiet, but it's been very quick. There's a subtle speed that is present in the number 10 car right now, it seems.
So you see drivers and teams out along the pit lane now getting set to go as the track is open for practice and waiting for the first groups to get themselves out there. Probably we'll see a couple of teams, maybe all together, to go and begin to do their work while putting on a show for this great crowd of fans that have turned out on the viewing mounds and over in turn number 2.
I think I saw some letters being written in the grass with empty beer cans. So that's people are enjoying the weather. They're enjoying Indy cars out on the speedway. Look at that. What it says 500. I'm glad it took less than 500 beers to do it. But keep up the great work, guys. It looks awesome. Running up front in relatively clean air. Colton Hurd has now jumped on the front of that train. It's McLaughlin, O'Ward, Power, and now Daly.
Daly at the back of the 5 cars. How about Colton Herta? That car has appeared to have speed, both in the qualifying simulations this morning and in some of the race work that they've done leading up to this.
Certainly has. I mean, a big effort from this team, as all teams over the offseason, to try to improve their 500 packages. Colton did have decent pace last year in the race before that mistake in turn 1 took him out. Just trying to refine that even further. The Cambridge Honda looking to find its way to the top.
How far back off of McLaughlin can I fall and catch back up to him? Well, not before Pato O'Ward comes around me. Speaking in the Colt Herta voice, if you will. Put us behind the wheel here. I mean, literally, what are the things you're thinking of as you're doing this drafting and running in line?
The biggest thing, I think, for these guys up front, what you're trying to feel out is the difference between how your car handles out front in clean air versus behind one car versus behind two cars. Based on those differences, what adjustments are you having to make with the tools in your car? Are they working? Sometimes you can play with all the tools you want, but the fundamental setup is just off. It's outside the window. The tools in the car, they really are fine-tuning adjustments. And so if your base setup is off, you come in the pits, you take another swing at something. If you're making changes to the roll bars, you're making changes to the weight jacker, and you're feeling those changes in the race car the way you want them to, you stay out there. You keep running, because what you want to know is how does your balance change over the course of a full tire stint. I'm sure these guys started on new tires with a full tank of fuel, and they're going to try to run as close to that kind of 30-lap goal. Somewhere between 28 and 30 laps is what you can do on a tank, and just try to see how the balance evolves as the fuel burns and the tires wear, and you bounce around from first in line to second, third, fourth, back to third, back to second.
So Marco Andretti has just gone to the top of the pylon at a 222.78. He did that at the tail end of a draft group and then pulled off and is headed back to the pit lane. So just a couple laps on the track for Marco. Puts the number on the top of the pylon, and back in he goes.
I have to laugh. It's just the most Marco thing ever. You know, goes out one lap at the back of a train, goes 2.5 miles an hour faster than anybody else, parks it. Let's come in. Don't like it. Something's wrong. Fix it.
But it's fast.
He knows how to make it fast, man. There's no driver better at working the draft than Marco Andretti. If this was a sport where you were on track at the same time in qualifying and had to time that sort of thing, I mean, he would be a tough guy to beat. He just knows how to work that air and work that toe so well. His teammate Kyle Kirkwood now has jumped up into P2 with a 221.9. So another impressive, strong showing from the Andretti cars so far. Not many cars on track, only 11 have turned representative lap times, but still.
And 4 on the speedway now. You see 3 of them in the picture right there as McLaughlin comes back around O'Ward.
So here's just a replay of the ECR machine coming out. You see Ferrucci down there trying to make it known that he's headed into pit lane, and then that fade up to McLaughlin. It's kind of one of the things that you see a little bit in practice, a lot of it in practice to be fair, but it is going to happen in the race on a green flag stop. So there is a lot of value to keeping your foot in it when you're getting out of the pits, and really work on getting up to speed, blending in to a line of cars already at speed. If you're one of the cars on track, being able to read those plays, read the traffic, understand if you've got the run to clear the car before you get to 3, because the closing rate can be enormous. And if you catch them at the wrong time, right in the middle, it can cost you a ton of momentum and a ton of track position.
Scott Dixon, Rinus VeeKay, Pato O'Ward there. Whoa, VeeKay had to come out of the gas. Look at that. Whoa, boy, that was close.
I almost think something broke there, because he's cruising. There's something wrong with that 18 machine. That was not something that Rinus VeeKay would have done voluntarily.
Yeah.
Such a dangerous situation. A car slowing up suddenly in the middle of the corner. Incredible job by the group behind him to avoid him.
I don't hear any engine noise coming
dead,
by there. Yeah.
Sounds dead stick on the motor, but man, that could have been so much worse.
Whew, watch this. How quickly O'Ward closes on him there, and then
Santino,
wow.
Who's that?
That's Elio.
Elio making the good move to get around. Look at Santino catching that one. Just lost power for some reason
was
on
that
the 18
Elio,
car.
or was that was Jack Harvey?
Okay. Is it? No, that's Elio. I think you had it right.
Yeah, okay, that was Elio. The other car up in line was either Connor or Harvey.
Yeah, coming out of
black
pit lane.
And green, yeah, that. Wow.
Alex Palou is pulled quite far ahead now from Power, who he got by just a lap ago. He's cleared Rossi, now just got around Scott McLaughlin. So maybe now finally starting to see some of that can they actually find they can go fast, but can they actually make passes?
Who's on what tires? Who's right? You know, the whole thing, right? What are we learning here? Well, they know what they're trying to learn.
Right, and that's one of the biggest things. You can learn what's happening to your car. You can't really learn where you are relative to anybody else.
Right.
Because you can, again, like you just said, join in the middle of a run on brand new tires around guys that are on 15, 16, 17 lap tires. And I'll tell you what, your car is going to feel great in comparison. The relative performance is going to be strong. And Palou and Power did come out together once this line had sort of already formed. So tough to draw too many conclusions, but Palou did just drive himself probably around 5 or 6 cars to get up to the front of this pack.
Cars you would think by reputation would be pretty good ones.
Exactly right.
Less than 30 minutes to go in our Indianapolis 500 open test. Today, headlines on the day. Yesterday in the no-tow laps, it looked like the Hondas were having a pretty good day. That was yesterday. This morning, you had 2 incidents, Takuma Sato and Kyle Larson, both with crashes this morning that fortunately they were able to climb from the car and walk away from and be seen and released from the infield medical center. And this afternoon, trying to decide what my headline is from this afternoon, but I guess the biggest thing I come away with is parity. Pick all the you know, throw a team name out there and right, I mean, Ganassi here, pictured here, certainly have looked good. There's Elio Castroneves tagged on the back. Meyer Shank has looked like they've got speed. I don't think there was anything wrong with the pace we saw from the Penske's or the Arrow McLarens even. So juicy, parity, tight competition coming up in the month of May.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I mean, you know, we talked a little bit about it yesterday, just the ability to have the parity among the cars on the same team, built by the same people with the same equipment in the same shop. They can sometimes still have a pretty big difference. As right in front of the booth here, we see a few of the Penske cars firing up with a brand new set of tires on, looking like they're going for one last long run. But it is hard to build cars that have very close speed range. And if you think of those teams you've mentioned, they've all kind of been in the same realm, the same area of speed. And likewise, there are a few that have been struggling. They've been struggling as a group as well. So it seems like the teams across the paddock are getting better and better at the QC between their own cars and building cars that are much closer in speed.
And no insult intended if I didn't mention your favorite team. Freddie Global, for example, looking good, looking strong. Connor Daly just jumped up to 3rd fastest on the leaderboard, running at the tail end of this draft coming down the main straightaway. So CD 223.29, a feel-good number posted there for the Noblesville native. Hey, 4th car in line here. Just a note for Jacob Abel, who has the fastest lap of the rookie drivers that have run today. Abel with the 20th best lap overall, 2:21.62. He's run 67 laps. His 55th of them was his quickest. Louis Foster has run 26 laps. He's back 27th on the speed chart. Robert Schwartzman is 30th on the speed chart. So tip of the cap there to Abel for being in that top 20 and running it till it ran out of fuel, apparently.
Don't like that. I really don't like that. That's already happened once from that team today with Rinus VeeKay, and it was a miracle we didn't have an accident. The fact that it's happened again on the same team, I'm sorry, I'm gonna call a spade a spade. That's pretty disappointing. With that many cars running on track like that, that creates a very dangerous situation. And though I'm sure not intentional, that's something that they need to get a handle on very quickly, because that could be a very dangerous situation. Just looking at when some of the drivers set their fastest laps, and a lot of them have come recently as this big pack started. You can get some big runs, but I'm more curious about the ones that did it early. Guys like Graham Rahal did it on his 6th lap of the day. Rinus VeeKay, his 4th lap of the day was his fastest. Alex Palou, quickest time so far, 3rd lap. Marco Andretti, 2nd lap. And then Scott Dixon,
yes,
lap 1.
His first lap of this practice session was his fastest. Isn't that something?
He figured, oh, I've got, 50 less horsepower and doing 10 miles an hour less. I can just keep my foot buried. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm already warmed up from the boost practice. Let's go.
See the crews with tires laid out. Here comes Alex Palou to the attention of his team, who has been just excellent this year.
Practicing the wing adjustment, or actually doing it. See the fuelers plugging in.
And again, no fuel is flowing there, but they are able to practice that connection to the car. And there's electronics hooked up to that as well. You're not able to engage the transmission while that fuel probe is plugged in.
That is correct.
Safety item there built into this the whole system in these NTT IndyCar Series machines.
To stop drivers driving away with a fuel hose still attached, which used to be a big concern. Obviously a big fire concern.
Yeah.
Pit lane is a busy place with 5 minutes to go between cars coming in and doing pit stop practice. Some cars already towing back through Gasoline Alley to head back to the garages. Their test days are done.
That's where the drivers coming down the pit lane, their spotters, their timing stands have to be on their toes. Who's coming in, who's making a pit stop while you're trying to get to the Gasoline Alley entrance with your tug in your car.
And we talked about the importance of the spotters earlier in race situations, but this is also a very tricky moment for them as they're trying to get their drivers safely in and out of the pits. Yep. While there's this many cars circulating. You see like this, a gaggle of cars happening right now. Graham Rahal, looks like Ed Carpenter actually blending out onto the racetrack. They currently sit 31st and 32nd of the 32 cars on the speed charts that have set times this afternoon.
Ed has run the fewest number of laps of the 32 that have been on the speedway for this test session. He and Ryan Hunter-Reay right there around that bottom number, 20 and change, low 20s. And again, the most number of laps turned are now surpassing 112 for Felix Rosenqvist and Scott McLaughlin. Graham Rahal just did his fast lap of this session. Graham has only run 34 laps, but his 34th was his best, and he's up into the top 10. 9th quick for Rahal, 2:22.87.
Nice big jump, as we just mentioned, 31st until a few moments ago. So that'll be a nice thing to kind of leave the test with a slightly stronger look on the speed charts.
And the checkered flag waves over the yard of bricks. And the Indianapolis 500 Open Test has concluded. Well, as the pace begins to wind down, we look at this overall running order and understand that's just single fast laps, but you could take a look and see where your favorite driver might wind up in the running order. And what are you going to come away from this with, James, overriding thought as we look ahead to the month of May?
Well, look, I think it was a lot of unknowns for a lot of teams and drivers coming here with this hybrid system in the car for the first time. And my overwhelming takeaway from it is it's been a huge success. We've heard drivers talk about how fun it is to work with it. We've heard about the complexities of it and kind of the different element it's going to throw into both qualifying and race running. It's run seemingly without issue, and based on what we saw, the racing still looks pretty good. It's not like it's negatively affected how these cars are racing too much. So this is, I think, been a really informative few days for the teams and drivers. And you know, we've had terrific months of May here the last several years, and it just leaves me with the anticipation that this one is going to be just as thrilling as the last several have been. Up next for the NTT IndyCar Series, it's down to one of the more beautiful road courses and challenging road courses in America, Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham. One of the best places to race an IndyCar, to drive an IndyCar. It's fast, it's flowing, it's physically challenging, and I know it's one that a lot of drivers love going to every year. It's really been a Penske property for the last few races. Scott McLaughlin, back-to-back winner there, looking to make it 3 in a row this weekend.
There's a look at the television schedule as well for the Children's of Alabama. Grand Prix. And then it's on to the Speedway here, where the month of May opens May 9th and 10th with the Sancio Grand Prix on the Speedway's road course. We flip it to the Oval on May 13th with Indianapolis 500 practice, including Fast Friday on the 16th. PPG Armed Forces Qualification Weekend is the 17th and 18th. We'll have an oval practice on the 19th in race condition. Then we'll have Miller Lite Carb Day, Legends Day by Firestone, and the 109th Indianapolis 500-mile race coming up on May the 25th.